The sun dipped low over the quiet hills of Oregon, casting long golden shadows across the narrow road that wound through pine trees. The air smelled of dust, rain, and freedom, the kind of mix Emma loved. She tightened her gloves and pulled down her helmet visor. The hum of her motorbike was her favorite sound in the world, strong, alive, and reliable. It never asked questions, never judged. It just took her wherever she wanted to go. It had been 3 weeks since her breakup with Daniel. She hadn't told anyone the full story, not even her closest friend. All she knew was that she had loved deeply and lost quietly. There were no fights, no loud endings, just silence that grew heavier every day until she finally decided to leave. Riding had become her therapy since then. The open road didn't talk back. It simply listened. She started the bike and felt the vibration travel through her hands, grounding her. Just as she was about to ride off, a familiar voice called out, "Emma, wait!" She turned and saw Liam jogging toward her from across the street. He lived 2 houses down, quiet, polite, and always the one to offer help when her mailbox jammed or when she forgot to bring in her trash bins. He was the kind of person you felt safe around without knowing why. "Hey," she said, pulling off her helmet. "What's up?" He looked slightly breathless but smiled. "Where are you heading?" "Just out," she replied. "No destination. Just needed some air." Liam hesitated for a moment, then asked softly, "Mind if I join you?" The question caught her off guard. They had never done anything together before, never even shared a coffee. She noticed the faint tiredness in his eyes, something that mirrored her own. He wasn't smiling to be polite. It was the kind of smile people wear when they're trying to hold it together. "It's going to be a long ride," she warned. "I don't mind long rides," he said quietly. "Sometimes those are the best kind." Something in his voice made her nod without thinking. "All right, grab your helmet." He quickly disappeared into his garage and came back wearing a black jacket that looked slightly worn out, like it had seen too many memories. He climbed onto the bike behind her, careful and respectful, keeping just enough space. But when she started the engine and leaned forward, she felt something hard press lightly against her back. The solid buckle of his jacket. The contact startled her for a split second, sending a strange rush through her chest. She wasn't used to anyone sitting behind her. Riding was her space, her escape. But now, with Liam's presence, the air felt different, warmer somehow, even though the evening breeze brushed cold against her skin. "Ready?" she asked over the engine noise. "Yeah," he replied, his voice muffled by the helmet. She twisted the throttle and the bike roared to life. The road opened before them, stretching endlessly through the hills. The wind rushed around them, carrying away the heavy silence that had been sitting in her chest all week. She didn't talk, didn't need to. The sound of the engine and the cool air brushing past her face were enough. As the miles rolled by, she felt the gentle weight of Liam's presence. His hands rested lightly at her sides, careful not to make her uncomfortable. It wasn't awkward, though. It felt natural. Every time they turned a corner, she felt his steady balance behind her, trusting her completely with the ride. That trust meant something she hadn't felt in a long time. The orange sky deepened into shades of pink and purple, reflecting off the lake they passed. Emma glanced at the mirror and caught a glimpse of Liam's face. Calm, thoughtful, his eyes half closed as if he were letting the road heal something inside him too. She remembered the first time she bought this bike. How Daniel had told her it was too dangerous. How he never understood why she needed it. But riding made her feel alive, made her feel like she was still her own person. And now, with Liam behind her, she realized she wasn't running away from her past anymore. She was simply moving forward. The road curved through tall pines and the air grew cooler. The sound of the engine echoed softly through the trees. Emma could feel her heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of the ride. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't overthinking, wasn't feeling lost. There was only the road, the wind, and the warmth of someone quietly sharing the same silence. When she slowed at a crossroads, Liam leaned slightly closer and said, "This feels peaceful." She smiled under her helmet. "Yeah, it does." He didn't say more, and neither did she. But in that quiet moment, something unspoken passed between them. The kind of understanding that only happens when two people share a road without words. She took a left turn toward the open fields, where the sky met the earth in endless blue and gold. The wind tugged at her hair, the motor hummed steadily, and Liam's presence felt less like a surprise and more like something that was always meant to happen. The ride wasn't about destination anymore. It was about feeling, the freedom, the warmth, the quiet company of someone who understood loneliness without having to explain it. As the sun disappeared completely, the headlights cut through the growing dusk, painting the road ahead in silver. Emma didn't know where they were going next, but for the first time in a long while, she didn't care. All she knew was that something had changed the moment she felt that solid touch behind her. Not just a jacket buckle, but a reminder that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she thought. And with that thought, she pressed forward, letting the motorbike carry both their hearts into the night. The road stretched endlessly under the fading light, and the hum of the motorbike filled the air like a soft song. Emma felt the wind brushing against her cheeks, cool and steady, while Liam's quiet presence behind her gave her a sense of calm she didn't expect. She wasn't used to anyone sharing this space, this sacred place where she escaped her thoughts. Yet tonight, it didn't feel invaded. It felt balanced, as if his silence matched hers perfectly. The sky shifted into shades of navy and violet. Streetlights flickered on along the highway, casting long shadows that raced beside them. Liam didn't talk much, but the way his hands rested lightly on her side said enough. Careful, respectful, but still there. Every small movement reminded her she wasn't alone. They rode past open fields, their edges glowing under the moonlight. Emma slowed down, letting the bike cruise gently as she took in the beauty around them. She felt the steady rhythm of the engine under her, and the warmth of Liam's closeness behind her. It wasn't romantic in the loud, obvious way. It was quiet, like comfort that comes after a long storm. Liam leaned closer, his voice soft against the rush of wind. "You always ride alone?" "Mostly," she replied. "It's easier that way." "Easier than what?" he asked. "Easier than talking about why I need to," she said with a small laugh that didn't sound happy. He didn't push. She liked that about him. Some people filled silence because they feared it. Liam seemed to understand that sometimes silence was the conversation. The bike moved steadily through the winding roads. Emma felt lighter than she had in months. She didn't think about Daniel or the arguments that had chipped away at her peace. She didn't think about the loneliness that used to follow her home every night. Right now, all that mattered was the sound of the motor, the road unfolding ahead, and the warmth of someone who wasn't trying to fix her. Just be there. When they reached a long stretch of road surrounded by tall trees, she pulled over near a quiet overlook. The city lights twinkled far in the distance, and the sky above was full of stars. Emma removed her helmet and shook her hair free, breathing in the cool night air. Liam took off his helmet too, his hair a little messy from the wind. He smiled faintly, his expression soft and tired at the same time. "This is beautiful," he said quietly, looking at the stars. "It's my favorite spot," she replied. "Whenever life feels too heavy, I come here. The world feels smaller from this view." He nodded, looking out at the horizon. "I get that." They stood there for a moment, both lost in their thoughts. Then Emma sat on the edge of the low guardrail, resting her hands on her knees. Liam joined her, keeping a small distance. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was warm, like they were both healing without needing to say how. "You don't talk much, do you?" Emma asked gently. He smiled. "Neither do you." "Fair," she admitted. "Guess we both have our reasons." Liam looked down, then said quietly, "Sometimes people think silence means nothing's going on inside. But sometimes it means too much is." That line hit her harder than she expected. She didn't say anything, but her eyes softened. He wasn't wrong. Silence had been her way of surviving the noise in her mind. Maybe it was his too. A breeze passed between them, cool and scented with pine. Somewhere nearby, crickets began to sing. Emma looked over at him and saw something different. Not the quiet neighbor she'd seen from her porch every morning, but someone real. Someone carrying invisible weight just like she was. "Do you ever feel like you're just moving without knowing why?" she asked suddenly. "All the time," he answered. "But sometimes that's how you find out where you need to be." His words stayed with her. There was something comforting in how he said them. Calm, sure, like he'd been through the same kind of loneliness. They sat there for a while, letting the moment breathe. Then Emma stood up and reached for her helmet again. "Come on," she said. "Let's keep going. There's a place by the lake I want to show you." Liam smiled, slipping his helmet back on. "Lead the way." As they got back on the bike, Emma felt that familiar press against her back, the same solid feeling she noticed earlier. But now it didn't startle her. It grounded her. It reminded her that life could still surprise her in small, gentle ways. When she started the engine, Liam placed his hands on her sides again, steady and sure. The road ahead glowed faintly under the moonlight as they rode toward the lake. The night grew colder, but she didn't feel it much. There was something about the sound of the motor, the hum of the tires against the road, and Liam's quiet presence that made the air feel warmer. Every turn felt smoother, every breath deeper. For once, Emma wasn't chasing peace. She was living it. When she looked at the reflection of the stars in the lake's surface, she realized that she wasn't as broken as she thought. Maybe healing wasn't about forgetting the past. Maybe it was about finding someone who could sit beside you without demanding that you talk about it. As the bike slowed near the lake's edge, Liam's hand brushed hers for just a second, accidental, fleeting, but enough to make her heart skip. She didn't move away. The night was still, and neither of them spoke. They just sat on the bike, watching the stars, breathing the same quiet air. It wasn't love, not yet. But it was something close, something warm, something real. Emma smiled softly to herself, realizing that sometimes the most unexpected rides lead you exactly where you were meant to be. And as the wind whispered through the trees, she knew the road ahead wasn't empty anymore. The lake shimmered under the moonlight, calm and silver like glass. The night was quiet except for the gentle hum of crickets and the faint sound of water brushing against the rocks. Emma parked the bike near the edge and turned off the engine. The sudden silence felt almost heavy after hours of riding. Liam climbed off and removed his helmet, breathing deeply, as if he hadn't taken a real breath in days. Emma stepped closer to the water, her boots crunching softly on the gravel. "This is my favorite place," she said, her voice calm but distant. "It's always empty. Just me, the water, and the stars." Liam stood beside her, his hands in his pockets. "It's peaceful," he said quietly. "Like the world slows down here." She smiled faintly. "That's the point." For a while, neither of them spoke. The stillness between them wasn't awkward. It was soothing. The kind of silence that said more than words ever could. Emma stared at the moon's reflection, feeling its cool light touch her skin. She'd come here many times before, but tonight felt different. She wasn't alone, and that made everything softer, warmer somehow. After a long pause, Liam broke the silence. "You ever feel like you're holding everything together with thread?" he asked, his voice low and careful. Emma turned to him, sensing something behind his tone. "All the time," she admitted. "Why?" He hesitated, looking down at his shoes, then at the stars again. "Because I think my thread finally snapped." She frowned gently. "What do you mean?" Liam took a deep breath. "My dad passed away last week." His voice trembled slightly, but he didn't look away. "I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to talk about it. Didn't want to hear people say the usual things like, 'I'm sorry,' or 'he's in a better place.' I just couldn't handle it." Emma's heart ached at his words. "Liam," she whispered, her voice breaking softly. He gave a small, tired smile. "That's why I asked to come with you tonight. I couldn't stay in that house another minute. Everywhere I looked, I saw him. His books, his jacket, even the chair he used to fall asleep in while watching baseball. It was like the walls were closing in." Emma took a step closer. "You don't have to explain," she said quietly. "I get it. Sometimes silence feels safer than sympathy." He looked at her with surprised eyes, as if she'd understood him without effort. "Yeah," he said softly. "Exactly that." For a few seconds they just stood there, the cool night air wrapping around them like a blanket. Emma slowly reached out and touched his hand. It was a small gesture, but it spoke louder than any words she could have said. He didn't pull away. Instead, he squeezed her hand lightly, grounding himself in the moment. They sat down on the grass near the water, still holding hands. The stars above them seemed brighter now, their reflections dancing on the lake's surface. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," Emma said quietly. "Losing someone like that. It changes everything." Liam nodded, eyes focused on the water. "Yeah. It makes the world feel smaller, quieter, but not in a peaceful way." She nodded slowly. "I felt that after my breakup. It wasn't death, but it felt like something inside me ended. I stopped trusting people. I stopped believing that anyone could understand what I was feeling." He looked at her, his expression soft. "And do you still feel that way?" She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Not tonight." Liam's lips curved into a small, grateful smile. The look in his eyes changed, not romantic in the obvious way, but full of connection. A deep understanding that only comes when two broken people recognize the same pain in each other. The wind moved through the trees, carrying the scent of pine and lake water. Emma leaned back on her hands, looking up at the stars. "You know, I think people meet for reasons we don't always see at first. Maybe this tonight was one of those reasons." Liam watched her quietly. "You might be right. I didn't expect anything tonight. I just thought I'd get some air. But somehow I feel lighter." She looked at him, her eyes soft and shining. "Sometimes, all we need is someone who listens without fixing." He nodded. "You're good at that." "I've had practice," she said with a small laugh. They both chuckled quietly, the sound blending into the night. Then, for a long moment, they said nothing. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful, like the silence after a storm. Liam looked out at the lake again. "You know, my dad used to love motorcycles. He always said they made him feel free. I never understood it until now." Emma smiled. "Then maybe tonight you were meant to ride one more time for him." He turned to her, his eyes soft with emotion. "Maybe I was." The air between them grew still again, charged with quiet meaning. Neither of them moved. The world around them seemed to pause. The ripples on the lake, the sound of the crickets, even the breeze, as if giving them space to simply be. After a while, Emma stood up and brushed off her jeans. "Come on," she said, her voice gentle. "We should head back before it gets too late." Liam stood too, and for a second he just looked at her. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" she asked. "For tonight. For letting me breathe again." Her heart softened. "You don't have to thank me. We both needed this ride." He smiled, and it wasn't a sad smile this time. It was real, small but full of life. As they walked back to the bike, Emma felt that same steady feeling she'd noticed earlier. The sense of something solid, something growing quietly inside her heart. It wasn't love yet, but it was something close. Something honest. When Liam climbed back on the bike and gently placed his hands around her waist, she didn't tense this time. She leaned slightly back, feeling the warmth of his touch and the quiet strength in his presence. The night air brushed softly against her face as she started the engine again. The hum of the motor filled the silence, but this time, it didn't feel like noise. It felt like healing. As they rode off into the starry darkness, Emma realized she had shared her road with someone who truly understood what it meant to feel lost, and maybe, just maybe, they had both started to find their way back. The road back was quiet. The kind of quiet that felt full instead of empty. The night had grown cooler, and the wind pressed gently against Emma's face as she guided the motorbike through the open stretch of highway. Liam sat behind her, his hands resting lightly at her waist. Neither of them spoke, yet something about the silence between them felt peaceful, like both their hearts were finally breathing again. Emma didn't rush. She wanted this ride to last a little longer. The stars above looked brighter than before, and the world around them seemed softer, calmer. The hum of the motorbike mixed with the rhythm of her heartbeat, and she felt a quiet happiness she hadn't felt in a long time. As they rode past the lake and up the curved hill, Liam leaned slightly forward, his voice low but steady. "I don't know why, but I feel lighter now," he said. Emma smiled under her helmet. "Good," she replied. "That's what the road does. It takes the weight away for a while." He chuckled quietly. "Then maybe I should ride more often." "You should," she said, glancing at him through the mirror. "It's cheaper than therapy." He laughed softly, and for the first time, she heard real warmth in his voice. Not forced, not polite, just genuine. That sound made something inside her ease completely. The bike slowed as they reached the edge of town. Streetlights glowed in yellow circles along the road, and the smell of rain drifted through the air. The world was asleep, but Emma didn't want the night to end. There was something sacred about this moment. Two people who started the evening as strangers, now riding home as if they'd known each other for years. She stopped at a red light, and for a second, everything was still. Liam's hand brushed her arm lightly, not to grab, just a soft touch, like he was making sure this moment was real. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "For what?" she asked, not turning around. "For not asking too many questions," he said. "For letting me just ride," she smiled softly. "Sometimes that's all people need." The light turned green, and the bike rolled forward again. They rode through the sleeping streets until Emma's neighborhood came into view. The houses stood still under the pale glow of the street lamps, and the soft hum of the engine filled the air. She pulled into her driveway and parked beside the small tree near her porch. For a moment, neither of them moved. The engine ticked quietly as it cooled, and the night air carried the faint sound of crickets. Liam took off his helmet and exhaled deeply, running a hand through his hair. Emma followed, pulling hers off and resting it on the seat. "This feels strange," he said. looking around with a small smile. "What does?" she asked. "Getting off the bike," he replied. "It feels like leaving something behind." She tilted her head, understanding exactly what he meant. "Maybe that's what tonight was for," she said softly. "To leave the heavy stuff on the road." He nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "You're probably right." A comfortable silence followed. Liam looked at her, the faint porch light reflecting in his eyes. There was something about the way he looked at her, not like a man trying to start something new, but like someone quietly grateful for what had just been shared. "Emma," he said softly, "you didn't have to let me come with you. But I'm glad you did." She smiled, her voice gentle. "So am I." He looked down, then back up. "Maybe next time," he said, "I'll be the one giving you a ride." Emma laughed quietly. "We'll see if I trust you enough for that," she teased. Liam grinned, shaking his head. Fair enough. The air between them was light now, almost playful. It was amazing how the same night that had started with quiet grief now felt filled with warmth. Neither of them said it out loud, but both knew that something had shifted, not in a dramatic, movie-like way, but in a small, genuine way that mattered more. As Liam turned to leave, Emma called after him. "Hey, Liam?" He stopped and turned. She looked at him, her expression soft. "You don't have to ride alone next time." "Just saying." He smiled. That quiet, grateful smile that had followed him all night, and nodded. "I'll remember that." She watched him walk down the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, his figure slowly fading into the calm night. For a while, she stayed there, the cool breeze brushing through her hair. When he disappeared from sight, Emma sat back on the bike seat and closed her eyes. The motorbike was silent now, but it still carried the warmth of the journey. She could almost feel the echo of his voice, the steady rhythm of the ride, and the peace that had come with it. She didn't expect to feel this quiet joy, this lightness that had been missing for so long. It wasn't love yet, not the kind that swept you off your feet, but it was something honest. It was the start of healing. The world around her felt softer now. The pain she carried hadn't vanished, but it didn't weigh her down anymore. Maybe that's what connection does. It doesn't erase your sadness. It simply reminds you that you're not the only one carrying it. Emma looked up at the stars, her heart calm. The night had started as an escape, but it ended as something else. A reminder that even broken hearts can find comfort in simple things. A shared silence, a steady hand, a ride under the open sky. She put her helmet back on, started the engine, and listened to the familiar hum come alive again. The sound wasn't lonely anymore. It felt like a promise. As she rode off once more, the wind wrapped around her like an embrace. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or if she'd see Liam again soon, but it didn't matter. What mattered was this: she had finally stopped running from her pain and started riding through it. And as the lights of her small town faded behind her, Emma smiled beneath her helmet. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid of where it might lead.